Hey guys, welcome back to another video. You know, pandemic is going on, not doing too much Tesla stuff, so keeping myself busy doing what I really like to do, and that is some 3D printing. Now, last year you probably remember that I did a model of a Dragon capsule, and I've just almost finished on the latest version. This one's by Dong. He lives in the UK. He's an incredible designer when it comes to 3D printed stuff. This is the newest one. It is called the MJ, Dragon MJ. It's over 50% larger than the previous one that I did, and it has, you know, interior there with astronauts. Anyways, when this is finished, I'll take it apart, show you how it works. So there's a capsule part, and of course, there's also the trunk, so I still have to print the other part of this. But on the weekend, he just released a brand new model. He's been working on a SpaceX Starship, and let me tell you, it's unbelievable. Look at this. It is absolutely gorgeous. It is 1/48 scale. So anyways, when it's finally done, it's going to be over 1 meter long. It takes about 3.5 kilos of plastic to print, and I've actually started on the project. My plastic printer here is currently working on the first segment. Matter of fact, it's so detailed, it's actually held together with magnets. It has downcomer pipes, 3 articulating Raptor engines. Speaking of which, those are being printed on my resin printer for the ultimate in detail. Anyways, I want to finish this project. I'm going to show you some of the parts and how it goes together. And anyways, I'm super excited about that. So anyways, I'll leave a link down in the video description if you guys are interested in purchasing the model. If you're into this kind of thing, you need a fairly large printer. But anyways, I'm very stoked about this. Well, it's day 2, and after almost 19 hours of printing, still going here actually on a second part, I got the first of what is 9 segments, so I have 8 more to do. Look at this. I mean, this is just incredible. This is the bottom of the Starship where the legs mount. That's what these little parts are for. Anyways, the resin prints also came out really good too, so I'm very impressed with that. I think this is going to take me about the better part of a month to finish, all things considered, because there's probably 100 other parts that I got to print. Surprisingly, I had a failed print at first. I had a bad batch of silver PLA, and I thought, oh, that batch had given me lots and lots of trouble, so I tried a second spool, and it came out perfect. So I'm going to chalk it up to a bad batch. But anyways, the detail of this is certainly incredible, and you can get a pretty good idea here that with 9 segments all together, plus the nose cone, this is going to be a large model. Also, very happy with the way that the resin prints came out. Very, very detailed. I'm glad I did that because, you know, doing stuff in PLA sometimes at that fine detail, you just, you know, parts don't fit that great together. Anyways, the resin came out really good. So, let's carry on. So I printed out all of these pieces here for the engines, and I'm going to attempt to put one of them together. One thing that's super impressive about this model is that these engines are actually gimbaled. There is a collar like this, tiny little piece, that goes onto this little nubbin piece, which then attaches to the engine, so you can actually move it in place. It took me 45 minutes, but as you can see, there is a completed engine, which consists of, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10, 11 pieces. I've printed a number of these segments and I started assembling them. I want to show you the base one. This is the one here with the legs, and you can see that there's a variety of different magnets, and I bought myself hundreds of these little magnets. You can get these off of Amazon. In this case here, this is a little box, and it contains some, I don't know, 300 magnets, and there's some here on the bottom of the legs as well, so you'll see that there's a magnet there and a magnet there, and when you flip it into position, it sticks and doesn't move around. When you want to put this thing together, you just take your ring segments and you just kind of line them up, And if I did this right, if I had them in the right orientation, they just click together, and then the whole thing is held together like that. The most tedious part of assembling this model is putting in the magnets, and my technique here is to first take the magnet and try to press fit it into the hole. And the instructions say to try and glue it in, but if I can get away with just a press fit, you're better off. So first I try a magnet on a spatula like so. I'll line it up over the hole and just push it in and see if it stays. See, it doesn't. So if it doesn't, then I'll just take a drill bit and I'll just remount the hole just a little bit in increment. You just do the process, and obviously for the opposite part, what I typically do is I will take another magnet and have it touch the other one so that the polarities are correct, and then I'll flip it over and then put it on the opposite side. Take your time. I've lost track of my days, but I thought I'd give you a quick update. I have 6 of 8 segments plus the nose cone printed. The 7th one is currently going on the printer right now, and this is how tall it stands at the moment. I have a couple more segments here. I thought I'd put them together and show you guys basically how this works. Now, the way this works right now is you got a bottom skirt, and then you have the liquid oxidizer tank. And then this segment right here is the common dome, so you can see it has a dome segment here on the bottom. You know, this is not an education of how the SpaceX Starship actually works, but I thought I'd show you some of the parts that are involved. Anyway, so you have the oxidizer tank, and above that, which is this part right here, is the fuel tank, which is methane. And inside the model, there is a sub-tank inside for the methane. Okay, so you take this top part right here, which has some holes, and you stick it on the bottom like so. And everything has been matched with corresponding magnets, so it only goes on one way. There we go. So there's your header tank for the methane, and there'll be another one at the top of the nose cone. Anyways, this sits on like this, so if I get the orientation straight. Now there is a tube that eventually, I don't know if you can see that there, but there's a hole right there, you can see it. Anyways, there's a tube that will go down inside of there. There we go. Okay. So you can see the model doesn't move, and it's that tall. There is another segment, of course, that goes on top of that. Again, it has a holder here for one of the tubes that's eventually going to go through. And again, I've matched all of the polarities of the magnet, so it only goes on one way. It sits like that, so you can already see it's quite tall. Anyway, so there's another ring segment that will go here, which completes the methane top tank, and then there is a much taller skirt that goes above that. That'll be the kind of the cargo area, and then there is a nose cone. So yeah, this is going to be quite tall. It's going to be a meter 20 maybe tall when it's all finished. So I still have to do the fins on either side, 2 fins on the nose cone, and of course all the internal plumbing. Time for another update. As you can see, the rocket is getting taller all the time, and I just finished printing off the largest of the barrel segments. Came out beautiful. For those of you who are into 3D printing, you're probably asking yourself, what layer height did I use to print this? All of the barrel segments I did at 0.28. I feel that anything lower than that, well, you're really not getting that much more quality out of it, at the expense, of course, that it takes you much, much longer to print. The only exception to that is some of the tubes that I just printed out today. These sit on the outside of the model, and I printed them at my usual 0.28, and turns out I was getting some delamination, so I redid them at 0.12. If you follow the instructions, make sure you print the really small stuff at a small layer height so you get the absolute detail. Of course, if you have a resin printer like I do, I mean, do the engines and that's great, but everything else, 0.28, small stuff, 0.12, works out really well. Well, as you can see, it's finally finished. This thing is massive. Matter of fact, I had to put my wide angle lens on this thing to be able to get it in the complete frame for you guys. I want to talk about specs a little bit because on camera you can't really tell, but this thing measures 109 centimeters tall. That's over 43 inches. It weighs about 4 kilograms. And it has a lot of really neat features. I am going to take it apart here shortly and I'll show you all of the details. It's incredibly detailed. But I want to say thank you to Andong. He's the author of this model. He lives in the UK. I'll put a link in the video description so you guys can check out his website. He has a lot of really cool models. For those of you interested in 3D modeling, this took over 200 hours of continuous printing. Other than one batch of bad PLA of the silver stuff that I had, my printer has been absolutely flawless in printing with this thing. And there are some parts that I did in resin. You don't have to, but for the extra detail, I kind of did that. Just before we begin on showing you some of the details, that the author has decided to make a smaller version of this. This is a 1/48 scale. He's going to be offering a 1/96 scale, so it'll stand about this tall when it's all finished. So it's perfect for those of you guys who want something that sits on your desk a little better than this thing. Matter of fact, I have no idea where I'm going to put this when I'm done with it. Let's get into some of the details. First things first, the flaps are movable. Matter of fact, the whole thing is actually held together with neodymium magnets, probably about 300 different little magnets. They just come off if you really want to take them apart. They just come off like this. So there's little pockets and stuff where you can put the little magnets. So I'll just set these aside, for example. Here, let's take the back ones off here. Larger flaps. By the way, these flaps are, there's a left and a right, so they only go on one way. So a lot of the stuff is actually keyed in such a way that you can't really screw anything up. So it's very well designed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 segments plus the nose cone. It's actually to scale according to a lot of photographs that were taken of the Starship during the development process. So let's start with the top here with the nose cone. So there's a blue tube up in here because the plumbing that he's designed in this thing is actually accurate to show you where everything is actually plumbed. Matter of fact, on the inside of the nose cone, you probably can't see that on camera, there is an oxygen tank and it is held on with magnets. So if I just reach in and just pull it out, I'll set this down. This is the oxygen header tank. Now I printed this in a nice transparent blue. So it's nice as a diorama, so if I do decide to take it apart to show people, you can see how everything goes. And it's actually designed when it sits outside the nose cone here, it's held on with a magnet. So you can actually see the flow of the liquid oxygen inside the tank. So let's set this aside. And by the way, it comes apart in 2 pieces. Some of the stuff is actually designed like this because in order to 3D print things, you have to lay them flat. And if I just take the tube off, this is the barrel segment. Now in the Starship, this will be where the cargo is. So if I just carefully lift this off, okay. And you can see on the inside of the barrel, and I showed this during the construction process, some of the details. It's all very highly detailed on the inside. Again, there's an oxygen tube that runs down the side, and you can actually slide it out. So there you go. So it has these little capture holes, so you can put them in. So I'll just set this aside for a moment. There's one barrel. Now this is where things get really interesting because you actually see the breakdown, because this whole section is actually nothing but fuel tanks in the real model. That's cargo. That's cargo. The rest of it is all just fuel tanks. Now, what's interesting on this model is if I can tilt it towards the camera a little bit here, you might be able to see some details here on the top. Maybe I'll do some close-ups and overlay so you guys can see that. But on the inside, there is a Tesla Model S battery pack. Again, to scale, so you get a pretty good idea of how big this thing really is in real life. On top of the methane dome, so there's 2 tanks in here. The bottom tank is the oxidizer, which is your liquid oxygen, and on the top is your liquid methane. With rockets, you need a lot of oxidizer, not as much fuel. It's just the nature of how things work. On top of this, there is a cap that comes off. It's in 2 halves, although I don't think I'm going to pull it off right now. Anyways, it just comes off in 2 halves, so you can actually peer inside. Decorative pipes on the outside have to come off first. So there's little clips here. Let me just take these off very carefully before I break anything. These are very delicate. Set these aside. And the clips so we don't lose anything. All right, now we'll be able to take this barrel off. So again, this is the top of the methane tank. And again, there's a hole here in the bottom where the liquid oxygen pipes run down through the model. This segment here is, like I said, the methane tank. And if I slide this off carefully, you'll see that there's a blue oxygen tube that runs down the side, and on top is the capture for the downcomer, I think is what they call it. It's printed in 3 halves, so there's actually 3 pieces. I've actually color-coded my model, and you don't have to do this, but I've color-coded the pipes for methane in red and oxygen in blue. So when you show the diorama, people can understand where everything goes. So on the bottom of this one here, you can see the start of where the red pipes go. Now we're getting inside the oxygen tank, and if you can see that inside, I don't know if cameras can capture that. Again, I'm just going to pull out this blue oxygen tube, and I will pull off this barrel segment and set this aside for now, and then pull off this barrel segment. Again, everything's magnetized. There's locating pins on both sides, so you can't screw it up. And in here you can start seeing some of the details of the plumbing on the inside for the liquid oxygen tanks and the methane tank. What's interesting is that he's even modeled it in such a way that here on the bottom there are the methane and the oxygen pipes when the rocket is actually on the stand. This is where they fuel it up. So actually when you put the model together, you get a pretty good understanding of how the Starship rocket is actually designed in such a way how the fuel flows through the whole system. So it flows through the bottom and then up through the rocket. And this section is actually the most delicate part because this is the one that contains the actual Raptor engines. Now I opted to print the Raptor engines, especially at this scale, in resin. You don't have to, you can do it in PLA if you'd like, but since I have a resin printer, figured, you know, why not? And the nice thing about it is that it gives you very high detail. There is a trade-off though, is that when you go to put the parts together, resin doesn't flex all that much. So that some of these parts are actually press fit together in order so that they gimbal, they actually do move. To do it over again, I would probably modify, I think, the scaling in my resin slicer just to make certain parts a little oversized and other ones just a little undersized, just so that they press fit together without breaking. I actually broke a couple parts in the process. If I did it in PLA, you have a lot more give because, again, it's plastic, it can move. That's basically the bottom, and as I showed during the construction process, the little legs actually do flip down, and again, they are held in. They're pressure fit in this position, but there are magnets on the bottom, so when you pop them out, they stay in position, so really quite clever. On the bottom of the tank, and I'll do some close-ups and put some overlays on top here so you guys can see, but there are COPV tanks, the carbon overwrap pressure vessels on the inside. They're actually very well modeled, and the engines do come out, so you can actually slide them out, but I find that they're too delicate to play with, so for this case, on this bottom part, they are just going to be fixed in place. So basically, that's the breakdown of the model. Let's put it back together again, and we'll try and do this as fast as possible without breaking anything. So first I'll just flip out the legs. Again, this is not a model that I'm actually going to be playing with. It's something you just kind of show people and then like, please don't touch it. As I said during construction process, it's important that when you build the model that you make sure that you set the polarity of all of your magnets correctly. Otherwise, you'll get repulsion and things won't fit. I've done it in such a way that my model only goes together in one way. So if I just get the orientation right, everything just stays in place, which is quite nice. I did key these. I put the little dots on the part so I knew which side to go where. And we have this barrel segment, like so. This is one of the largest segments to print, that and the nose cone. The nose cone, you can actually print it either in one piece or you can print it in 3 pieces. The model gives you both. I opted to print it in 3 pieces because something like that, if it goes screwed up, I mean, you've wasted a lot of PLA, so sometimes it's nice to do it in segments. Like so. Put your oxygen tank together. Just drops down on the inside. Flaps only go on in one direction. And if I remember correctly, this side goes like this. Like that. Bottom flaps, both sides. I forgot to put the Tesla battery back in, but that's okay. But you get the gist of it, of how it kind of fits together. Well, there you go. That's how you print and build, assemble the final SpaceX Starship rocket by Andong. And if you guys are interested, again, check out the links in the video so that you can download your own model, and very soon he will have a smaller one so you can put on your desk. He has a lot of other very interesting models on his website as well, including a couple different scale sizes of the Dragon Crew and also the Raptor engine in several different sizes. So make sure you check out his website. That's it for today, and happy 3D printing. We'll see you guys on the next video. More Tesla stuff coming your way. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.